I want to go further about this topic about becoming humble, becoming a noon, becoming a moon. Let's look at David Melech, one of the 7 shepherds, one of the greatest righteous people of Am Yisrael of all time. And before we get into him, there's something that Rabbeinu Zal says in Likutei Moharan. He says something amazing. He says, if you ever think that Moshe Rabbeinu, Yaakov Avinu, David Melech was just someone just super great, that God just gave all this energy and koach to be righteous and be this great light of Am Yisrael, and you don't think that he was normal, and that they had Yetzer Haras, that they had to fight their own evil inclinations, that they had their own desires and wills, then you're greatly lost and you're reading the entire Bible, the Tanakh, wrong. Why? Because you need to realize that the true greatness, the true amazingness of every righteous person in the Bible is because they had to fight their desires. We just spoke about Yehoshua having to fight his desire, what he grew up to be like his father Nun. Nun actually led with pride and arrogance to lead out Ephraim before the exile was over, before God said they could leave Mitzrayim, and they left. And Yehoshua was going to be just like that. Yet Yehoshua fought and destroyed that Yetzer Hara, destroyed his understanding, and totally nullified himself to the will of Moshe Rabbeinu. So too, we're going to learn about David Melech, the greatness of David Melech. I'll bring out one part in the Gemara, just one thing. We know about Bathsheba a little bit just from reading in Shmuel itself, but something in the Gemara about David Melech blew my mind. And I'm just going to give you a kitzur of it. It says that when he saw Abigail, at some point when Abigail was making a movement, a slight piece, I think, of her dress, maybe at the lower part of her leg, at her calf, has just shown just a little scratch. And David Melech saw this great light in her. Now, we're all talking about a light of Kedusha, but at the same time, he also saw something in her, and he wanted her. And at this point, she was married. At this point, she was forbidden. She was asur to David Melech. And David Melech at this point was, quote unquote, I'm saying quote unquote because it's not exactly what we're saying, but it says in the Gemara that he was struggling. He was struggling not to be with her. And Abigail, in her wisdom, had to tell her many halachot, talking about nida, and saying how she was on her time of nida, we should say, and trying to convince David Melech, not yet, not now, wait till later, because he was trying to fight an urge. We see in other places that we know that David Melech was red hair and like Asaph. He was red and hairy like Asaph. And we have to imagine, what does that mean? Why did the Torah tell us that David Melech came out red and hairy like Asaph? Because David Melech in his whole entire body was full of desire, was full of a Yetzer Hara that was on fire, that could have became, God forbid, something so evil and destructive. But with all this power and koach, it's like David Melech became the rectification of Asaph. He's like, I know I have these passions. I know I have these desires. But I'm going to crush them. I'm going to nullify them. And I'm going to use all this energy that God gave me and put it towards God. And that's the amazingness of the Bible. That's the amazingness that Rabbeinu Zal is trying to tell us in Likutei Moharan. That when you read that these amazing, great, righteous people in the Bible had great Yetzer Haras, and that's their greatness, that they use them to fight, to go against their nature. Look at Avraham Avinu. He grew up in Avodah Zarah. He was making Avodah Zarah. He was making idols for the world. He was a master of idols. He was like the greatest. His father was a big prince, was a big commander to Nimrod, who was king of the world. And yet Avraham went against his royalty. Avraham went against his own upbringing of idolatry and said, no, this is false. This is wrong. It wasn't that Avraham just came on the scene and he's just this righteous, holy man with a great beard and a great face and just like everyone must follow God. No, he himself had to fight his own background to become something great. So that's what it means to become a noon, to become a moon, to become nullified to yourself. I will keep saying this because this is the biggest thing to learn from Rabbeinu Zal. He's telling you this is lesson 1. If you want to gain any light from Hashem, you need to nullify yourself. Why was Rebbe Natan, the greatest, the Talmud of Rabbeinu Zal, the greatest Talmud, the reason why we have Likutei Moharan, the reason we have any of Rabbeinu Zal's writings, by the way, is because Rebbe Natan of Breslov had copied everything down, and this is not something simple. He went through a life struggle to copy and print and to distribute all of Rabbeinu Zal's writings. And every time he had to write down a lesson, there was such great strength and opposition against him when it came down to these lessons and trying to get them out because they're so holy. There's a lot to say about that. But let me bring out something. Rabbi Natan was only a Talmid of Rabbeinu Zal for 8 years. Rabbeinu Zal had a Talmid named Rabbi Shimon. That was his Talmid from 13 years old. When Rabbeinu Zal was 13 during his bar mitzvah. That means since Rabbeinu lived till 38, he was a Talmid for 25 years. And many other Talmidim were his followers for 10, 15, 20 years. Yet Rabbi Natan was only a follower for 8 years. Not only that, Rabbi Natan was very different from everyone else. He spent the least time with Rabbeinu Zal. And the question becomes, how did Rabbi Natan become so great? How was he Rabbeinu Zal's number one Talmid? And Rabbi Yitzchak Bender tells us something amazing. He says, don't you understand? The reason he became so great and everyone knew why he became so great is because he became like the moon. He nullified himself the greatest. Now, everyone has a degree of nullification, I hope. Everyone has nullified themselves to some degree to someone who's greater than them. But Rabbi Natan was able to do it the best. I'll give you one example. He was at the level of a great Dayan at this time, a great judge for a city in Nimrov. His parents, his father and his father-in-law were great Chachamim. They were greatly honored. They were amazing scholars in Torah. And he was ready and lined up for it. But when he met Rabbeinu Zal and he accepted him as his Rebbe, he said, I'm going to wipe out everything. I know nothing. I'm going to start all over again from square one, from Aleph Bet, to relearn the entire Torah. And that's what made Rabbi Natan so great, is he completely nullified all his wisdom and said, I'm going to relearn now under my master, under Rabbeinu Zal. Again, so when we nullify ourselves to this great degree, we become so great. But let me speak about the other part. What happens now if we choose not to take Rabbeinu Zal's advice in this lesson? That we choose not to find the sekel and the kochma in all things. What will happen at this point? So that you become the opposite. In Judaism, there's no balance. We say in the Tanya, I think it's chapter 6 or 7, that says there's no middle ground. It's either you're Baal Chesed or Chas v'Shalom, you're becoming a Rasha, you're becoming selfish, prideful. Same too here. If you're not going to nullify your will, then your will grows. You grow prideful. You grow arrogant. You get angry when things don't go your way. And this completely shuns the light of God. You block it out. And the reason you do that is because you're very much like Esau. You've said, I reject wisdom. I don't like my Bechorah. I don't like that I'm a firstborn. I don't want responsibility. I just want what I see and I'm going to take it. I see food, I want to eat it. I see steak, it looks great, it smells great, I want to eat. I see women, I just want to have physical pleasure and I don't care about starting a family and so forth. You just see things the way they are, and this is why you're blind from God. This is why you don't see God and godliness in your life, because you think instantaneously with your flesh which is like darkness, which is like a cloud over the light or the sun that God's trying to shine on you. You think, oh, my wisdom, I know something, I know better than this guy thinks he knows so much, this rabbi, this leader, this pastor, this whatever you're following is so much greater. I mean, I'm so much greater than him. He doesn't know anything, he's young, he's this and no. If God chose to anoint someone like Yirmiyahu, who's 15 years old, when he was going out and prophesying, whoever God uses, or whoever you choose to follow, you need to completely submit yourself to. And if not, especially to God, he's number one to submit to. If you choose not to, and you believe that you have something better to bring to the table, then you will never ever see the light of God. When you come into events that happen to your life, Rabbeinu Zal is telling you, think for a moment. Stop. I know. Resist. Subjugate yourself. Subjugate your desire to grab the meat right away. Subjugate yourself from wanting this and that. And learn to think for a moment. Let's use women for an example. For men, I'm sorry. Men, if you just look at women as objects, as figures and so forth, then you're never going to get to the heart of what a wife is, or what a woman, or what marriage means to you. Okay? We're just telling you right now that a woman is actually like the moon, like I said earlier. And a man is supposed to be this great light. What is a woman therefore made for you for? Sorry if I confused myself there. It's for you to completely be a leader, to be responsible for another life, to take care and give life to someone else, to learn how to give life like God, Kaviyako, to be like God in your life, for your family, for your children, for your wife. That's what she's there for. She's there to raise your family, and you should respect and honor that she's home, that she's the queen of your home, that she's the master of your home, that she takes care of you, that she listens to you, that you have a companion, that you have someone to work with. Rabbeinu Zal says that you should be happy enough that she simply raises your children. Meaning the Gemara also says the same thing. She just raises your children and that's it. Meaning maybe she gives you even a hard time. Maybe she doesn't make your favorite meal. Maybe she's etc. It doesn't matter. You need to learn to respect what God gave you, that someone is there to raise your family, to help you raise a family for you. So that's what happens when you choose not to follow Rabbeinu Zal's advice. I don't want to see these things. I'm not going to focus. I'm not going to take a time out to focus on this when it's happened. I'm just going to get mad and angry and I want this and I want everything instantly. So this instant lifestyle is what's causing us to block out God's light because we're not taking a moment to look at it. However, there's something great about God then. God says, as time goes on, you want to ask, why is Kabbalah and Chassidut being introduced into the world? Because it's supposed to counteract this mentality. Before, let's say we lived in this instant world. Let's say go back 200 years. Okay? We didn't have iPhones. We didn't have technology. We didn't have lights per se. And everything was much slower. So we were humans. We were naturally looking into things much, much, much more. Today, now that everything's instant, you can't get someone to concentrate for more than 5 minutes. So therefore, God has only 5 minutes now to download His information and His light into you in order for you to receive it in Makabbalah and to do something with it. And the further down the road we become more like Esau, we become less like God, we become less like the noon. So God has to counteract by saying, okay, I need to give more and more and more light so that you can start to see without having to look so deep into things, because you're getting very weak, you're getting very lazy in what you're supposed to be doing. And so therefore my kindness, my chesed, is to come and follow you with this light. This is why Zohar and Kabbalah and Chassidut is becoming so popular today, because it's what's going to counteract this big wave of apikorson, this big wave of laziness and becoming like Esav, as most of us, myself, have become, because it's a very difficult generation. So we need to look at this light of Chassidut. We need to look at the light of Rabbeinu Zal in order to have the right advice for us to break our natural desire. Our natural desire is to be human. Our natural desire is to be selfish and not to look at things. I just want to go to bed. I just want to eat. I just want to go to do whatever I want to do. I just want to go to the mall. I want to just click on Amazon and order it, and that's it. It'll be over with. This is the mentality we've grown up with. This is the generation of ours. So we need this sort of quick light to enter us, and hopefully it starts to break down the Esav in us, and we begin to regain the desire to take a moment to pause and to start to think and reflect in the sekel, in the wisdom in all things, and then we'll begin to see God in our lives again. Thank you.